Hello, and welcome to Talkin' Tales, where we share stories about our animal companions, their unique personalities, their zany antics, and the heartbreak of saying goodbye. I'm your host, Paul Barnett. On March 25th, 2017, I met a young ferret who was less than a year old and needed a home. His fur was unlike any ferret I had known before. A little too light to be considered a sable, a little too dark to be considered a chocolate. His front paws looked like they were dipped in white paint, which would make him a chocolate or sable mitt. But he also had a large white bib that extended to his shoulders, and white patches on his knees and underside. He would likely have been classified as a mutt. No matter how you would classify him, he was adorable. He fell asleep in a very cute position in the carrier on the way home. He needed to rest as he was about to ascend the throne in his new kingdom. But first, he needed a name. At the time, I had 8 ferrets: Peter, Piper, Pixel, Pretzel, Milo, Smidget, Benson, Rigby, and Xerxes. Of the current group, I had only named Pixel and Pretzel. Everyone else had names when I adopted them, but this new little one did not. He would be the 9th ferret in this group, and the 7th one overall for whom I would choose a name. Being a fan of 80s sitcoms like Married with Children, and science fiction shows like Star Trek Voyager, when I noted the arc of dark fur above his left eye, and not wanting to put his name at the end of the list of 9 ferrets, I landed on the name 7 of 9, or 7 for short. 7 settled in quickly, and before I knew it, he was running the show. During playtime, there was always a group of ferrets running together, or a playful wrestling match going on, and 7 was either in the center of it or had started it. He enjoyed being the center of attention. He also enjoyed standing in the center of the giant plate of soupies I would make for everyone each Saturday night. I would have to pick him up out of the soup and put him next to one of his siblings and tell him, "7, no one wants your foot soup." I lost track of how many times I said that to him. When new members joined the family, that meant 7 had more siblings to play with and get riled up. But first he had to approve them. Whenever anyone new was in the house, they got a thorough inspection from 7, which included him following them around, testing their wrestling skills, and seeing how far he could push them before they would complain. He was never mean, but persistent. He acted like an alpha ferret, and mostly got away with it. But that was because his big sister, tiny little Pixel, allowed it, most of the time. I remember one specific evening when Pixel decided to remind 7 he was her little brother. 7 tried to initiate a wrestling match with Pixel. He was about twice her size at this point, at about 1,200 grams, to Pixel's 600. Pixel was not in the mood, so she showed 7 that just because he was bigger didn't mean she couldn't put him in his place. And so she did. As the playscape changed, 7 found new ways to have fun. He led some of his brothers, including Bowie, Xerxes, Rigby, Benson, and Dodger, and later Omni, Skeeter, Ludo, Dennis, Nicholas, and Brendan, on an adventure that involved climbing up onto the futon, then running across it, and jumping the gap to a side chair. Thankfully, the furniture wasn't tall, and there were pillows below for anyone that didn't make the jump, though usually if someone didn't make it, they still at least got their front paws on the chair before sliding down onto the floor. Like every ferret, 7's batteries would eventually run down and need to be recharged. He virtually always chose to sleep in the same cage with the other big boys, but he always welcomed some of his sisters to join him for a cuddle in a barrel, hammock, or sleep sack. Amazingly, for the most part, 7 cooperated for holiday pictures. Sure, he flung off a hat every now and then, and could get a little squirmy, but it was as if he knew he was having his picture taken. 7's antics went on for years. He welcomed many new brothers and sisters, and said goodbye to many as well. One day, I realized we were coming up on Seven's 7th birthday. I hadn't thought much about it before, because unlike just about every other ferret I'd known, Seven didn't get a single medication, or even a supplement, and he looked like he was 2 or 3 years old, with a full coat of fur and no signs of aging in or around his face. At his annual medical exam near his 7th birthday, he got a clean bill of health, too, and still didn't need any medications or supplements. He continued his daily routine of instigating all sorts of antics during playtime, and continued to enjoy standing in the soup. I began referring to him as Captain Seven, calling Captain Seven to the bridge for soupies. Before I knew it, we were coming up on his 8th birthday. 8 years old, and he still looked young and didn't need any medications or supplements. That was a major milestone, and also warranted a promotion. I began calling him Admiral Seven. He shared bowls of soupies with his crew, Captain Nicholas, First Officer Spunkles, and Commander Brendan. At his next yearly exam, the doctor noted a slightly decreased heart rate, and his blood glucose was just barely at an acceptable level. It was time to start him on a couple of medications. As can happen with many ferrets, the decline was quick. Within a month or so, we needed to increase the dosages of his medications and add a supplement for his heart. The medications were beginning to take their toll on his appearance, and age was beginning to catch up with him as his tail fur thinned and his face started to show his age. Keeping his weight up at normal levels became harder and harder, even with extra soup. He still had a healthy appetite, and was crunching plenty of kibble, too. Despite his declining appearance, he remained as sharp as ever, and his eyes were bright and open wide. His back legs started to fail him, though, and it wasn't related to his insulinoma. After doing an X-ray, the doctor noted a compressed vertebra near the top of his spine. It might have been a birth defect that was now starting to bother him in his old age. There wasn't really anything we could do about it, except try to manage any pain and keep his legs strong. So on the doctor's recommendation, I started doing water therapy with him daily. I would fill a large tub with slightly warm water, and Seven would swim around in it until he tired out, which was usually about 15 minutes or so. With the water supporting his body weight, he had no trouble swimming, or even walking and running around, if the water wasn't too deep yet. He seemed to enjoy it, and I was always standing right beside him, supporting him as necessary. His enthusiasm and energy for a good swim and a bowl of warm soupies never ceased to amaze me. We were coming up on him being 8.5 years old. He was now my second oldest ferret ever, with the oldest having been his big brother Milo, who made it to his 9th birthday. Seven's time was shorter than I knew, however. Less than 2 weeks after one of his little brothers left unexpectedly, on November 2nd, 2024, Admiral 7 of 9 passed quietly in his sleep. It was heartbreaking to find he had left, but I am thankful that it was peaceful, and he passed at home amongst his siblings. He was the third of 4 members of my ferret family to leave in less than a 2-month span, and the only one that was somewhat expected, or at least not too surprising. It was such a pleasure watching him grow and run the ferret business. I'm sure his siblings appreciated how he made sure everyone had fun during playtime. His little brother Rebel, who knew Seven for about 6 months, learned from his big brother, and has picked up the mantle of Playtime Activity Director, and will help keep Seven's spirit alive. Rest in peace, Admiral 7 of 9. If you'd like to share a story about a special pet, visit us at talkandtalespodcast.com or on Facebook at facebook.com/talkandtales. Stories are pre-recorded, so you don't have to worry about being live on the air. And if you'd prefer to write your story, I'm happy to read it for you. Again, please get in touch via talkandtalespodcast.com or on Facebook at facebook.com/talkandtales. That's TALKINTAILS. If you run a rescue or shelter, or know someone who does, please have them get in touch so we can feature them on an upcoming episode. If you'd like to support the show, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/talkandtales. No matter what podcast app you choose, please take a moment to rate and review the show and share it with a friend. It helps us find new listeners, which means we can bring you more stories.